I go by the name of Luthinus. This is Salama.
Yeah.
She came in to feature with me today. We're going to perform one more song. It's called Because I Want To. Hope you guys enjoy it. When I met you, it's like we clicked from the moment we got together. However, I'm intrigued. You got me curious to know through the woman I dream. I mean, I need companionship is deeper than what we think. I was ashamed you passed by. I was gambling, guessing your name, waiting for an opportunity for you to get through to me. Since I found peace for my unity, I'm still waiting, fascinated and contemplating. Wasn't until your friend, which was my friend, dropped the dates for us to connect. I got your contact, dropped the text. Hours on end, spent days and nights fighting and talking. Early mornings, yawning, learning and loving everything about you. This was the moment I prayed for. Your love is what I was made for. You're giving me something to fight for. Ooh, she's delightful. Beauty recognizable from afar like the Eiffel. A woman with different layers like a trifle. A kindness to die for. A baby I ride for. Tell him something more.
I do this because I want to.
No, because
I love to.
Just know
I don't want you.
Understand?
I just need you.
Okay.
Do this because I want to.
No, because
I never have to. Do this because I want you.
One more time.
Do this because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
Just know
I don't want you.
Understand?
I just need you.
Yeah.
Do this because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
do this
because I want you.
Okay, as we progress, I realize patience takes time. I wanna be there for the rest of our lives. No feel the outcome after our fights. Keep your faith, cause love for you is right. And I seen the light we shed from our hearts was meant for us, won't break apart. Cause I believe in growth. It's been a while since someone special like you has given me hope. Remember us staring at the summer sky, sharing dreams we desire to achieve in life. Lost in your eyes in another world. Our souls enclosed, embracing every moment of what we hope. The words we exchange, the power from pain. Happiness maintained to keep us sustained. Got me driven in a way, she has me attached. Something about her, she's a diamond piece, shining brightly. Deep in my heart, cherish your devotion. Take this love letter as a token.
Because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
Just know
I don't want you.
Understand?
I just need you.
Okay.
Do this because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
I do this
because I want you.
I do this
because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
Just know
I don't want you.
Understand?
I just need you.
Tell her.
Do this because I want to.
No, because
I never have to.
I do this
because I want you.
because I want to. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I go by the name of Luthinus. This is Solomon once again. Thank you guys for your attention. Thank you guys for bringing us on your open up. If you're not really there, you can catch the leaflets, the flyers there on the table. Thank you.
Whereas Martin Luther King was a man with a dream, I take no pleasure in introducing a man with a scam. Ladies and gentlemen and people, coming onto the stage is a man who supposedly needs no introduction whatsoever. His infamy precedes him. He secretly serves as Frank Hester's personal unconscious bias trainer, and hopefully, God forbids it, that he may well have to serve as the Monica Lewinsky to a future Prime Minister Kemi Badenoch. He is a key architect of disunity in the United Kingdom, a man who sees race in his cornflakes and in his jollof rice. I, for one, am a bit shocked that he's not already on a plane to Rwanda as we speak. But seriously, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the author of a new age classic, Think Like a White Man, and now the Hip Hop MBA. Put your hands together for our host, our founder, and my little brother, Nels Haggett.
Evening, everyone. Future Monica Lewinsky. The potential, God forbid, for Prime Minister Kenny Batten. Can I get a God forbid out of that? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's really nice to see you. I'm going to get rid of these for a little bit of time. Can we get rid of the two stands, please, or so? And then, are you going to come sit or stand? Sit. Do what you want. No, that's not for you, that's for these guys. Right, so... I'm happy to stand. Okay, let's do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Welcome to Uppity. This is our 6th edition. This is the As They Trespass Against Us edition of Uppity. We are very, very delighted and happy and everything else that you can fit in between to see you all here tonight. It's going to be a packed evening. It's going to be an interesting evening, dare I say. We're doing this a little bit differently again. We're normally, for those of you who've been here before, we're normally on the ground floor. Today we're on the 4th floor. So we'll find out what you think about the difference in the rooms afterwards. But yeah, we're all the way up, as Matt says. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to dive right into this tonight. This is a very, very interesting and pivotal time. We've got quite a lot to get through tonight, which may or may not have been what Diddy said to Cassie, but we'll say we'll get through it anyway. Guys, this is not a place to come to preach. It's not a place to come to preach. It's not church yet, anyway. Right. Puff Daddy, or Sean Diddy Combs, or Diddy, whatever name you want to call it, was a unicorn. He was a music business icon, unlike almost of fairy tale proportions. That he, for those of us who've been around for a bit of time, if you're in your, say, 30s or like me, 20s, you would have known, you would recognize that this was a figure of really great magnitude. That it's almost quite shocking how he emerged in retrospect right now. It was almost a bit like a black Donald Trump. He was a signal of the high life of human, almost a one-man human luxury brand. Everything he did, literally everything he did, from making records to sending interns to buy him cheesecake to fleeing a nightclub shooting, he made it all look so great. He really did a good job of it. And then things fell apart, as Jamie said to us. I have just written a book called The Hip Hop MBA. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a real boost to my self-esteem. Thank you. So, at any time over the last 3 decades, I could have written that book with ease. And I could have littered that book with Puff Daddy's name with absolute ease. It would have caused no issue, no problem whatsoever. In fact, it probably would have been, people would have been begging me to find out whether or not I spoke to him. I didn't. And, or what the situation was. As I pressed send, literally pressed send on my 7th and final draft of the Hip Hop MBA, news broke about the lawsuit that Cassie had filed against Puff Daddy. And immediately I started to sweat because I thought to myself, I have showered this man in praise, and praised him as a business genius, and you name it, and I'm about to get cancelled with him too. So I had to contact my editor and say to them, look guys, I need to write quite a safety chapter here or so, and probably add some bits and bobs into it. Sean Combs has been accused of very, very, very serious crimes. He hasn't been arrested, he hasn't been charged, he certainly hasn't been convicted. And we're not here to do that to him. That wouldn't be fair. That's the job of the courts. But we do recognise one thing, and I think it's fair to say, and if anybody disagrees with me, let me know, it's fair to say that he is technically, that this is the dawn of his career. He's practically finished, essentially, right now. And it's, so it's the fall of a guy who is effectively an icon, but not just an icon in any old realm. He was an icon for the dispossessed, essentially, for the people who had never really had a stake as far as capitalism was concerned, who were pretty much on the outskirts of consumerism. And he was also an icon in the concept of black culture. Dare I say he was the king of all three things. And to see him fall right now, in real time, was something I really just thought was fascinating. Because I thought it was fascinating both from a personal tragedy, and I must say this too, I must be honest with you, part of you, if you're a black person here, part of you knows that you're black. When a great black person falls and your heart just sinks, you just feel like, God another one. You with me? It just, there's something in you. So I felt that too. But I still had to write the trigger warnings and disclaimers in my book nonetheless. But we are here tonight to speak of the black king of culture, of capitalism, and of consumerism. And we want to put him in proper context. We really want to understand who he is. We're not going to speak of him in past tense. How he got to where he was, or where he is, or where he was. How he accrued all this power and influence and everything else. And I really couldn't think of anybody better, really truly in the United Kingdom, or further afield, to speak to about this than three of the most brilliant minds I know, who really know their chops on this actual subject, who really know what they're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like to welcome into the Uppity Circle a dear friend of mine, and a man who I may or may not have experienced my first degree of intimacy whilst listening to him on the radio. Radio DJ and long-standing record executive, Matt White. Matt, ladies and gentlemen, applause for that, right, ladies and gentlemen. TV and music executive, my old BBC stomping ground here too. Jay Davison. Jay, step up into the Uppity Circle. And DJ and long-standing record executive, once again, well, DJs at the house too. Long-standing record executive, pioneering British DJ and record executive too. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mervyn Lynn. So guys, this is we're not recording a podcast here. We don't record podcasts at Uppity. What we do, sorry, guys, please let me know. I need to be stage managed because I have this really great way of just putting my back and covering the entire camera, which is kind of really horrible. So please let me know if I'm in the way of the camera, guys. Oh yeah, so we need a couple more microphones. So guys, how the process works at Uppity, we are not recording a podcast. We are not in the business of you shutting up and hearing what we have to say. This is a very fully interactive house. We want your thoughts, we want to know what you think, we want your questions, and we have a unique and very, very welcoming way of actually doing so. So if you have anything to say, you have anything to contribute, you have anything to ask, you rise to your feet and you say those three magical words, which are? Which are? Point of what? Blackness. Point of what? Blackness. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. This is a black house, and you get to just stand up and say point of blackness. It does. We had one of the whitest of white men straight from the Caucasus Mountains last month, and he jumped to his feet and said point of blackness and snatched the microphone out of my hand. So here we are. Guys, Jay, Matt, Mervyn, thank you so much for your time this evening. As I said before, if you have anything to contribute, anything to say, please, by all means, rise to your feet, let it be known, let it be heard. But guys, I offered really short intros on the three of you. I don't think I've done you justice in the slightest bit. Can I just start off by asking the three of you just to give us a taste of who you actually are, so you can actually lay out your credentials for the Uppities?
So excuse my back. I've just had a little cyst cut out, so I've been shot in Shoreditch. Just so you know. Okay, so my name's Mervyn Lynn. I spent my entire working life in record companies. From head of black music at Virgin Records back in the day. I ran Sleeping Bag Records in Europe for a while. Then went to Motown. I was general manager of Motown International for about 4 or 5 years. And then I came to B&G and was given 3 labels to look after: Bad Boy, LaFace and Rowdy. So I was around with Puffy from day one, I guess, of Bad Boy and Biggie and Craig Mack and Faith Evans. In fact, we bought Biggie and Craig Mack a Big Mac attack to London back in the day.
Put some respect on this one.
I guess it was from conversations with Puffy back then that we became the first record company in the UK to have a UK street team, which plastered the Royal Albert Hall and such like. And I've been in the business of music ever since. I started my own company in 2012, working with brands, helping brands engage with consumers, using partnerships in music, sport and entertainment, but my background is music.
My name is Matt White. As Nelson said, DJ, radio presenter from Kiss FM in the late 80s, early 90s, and now currently on My Soul, which is a station that does a very similar thing for the older generation. In many ways, I wanted to grow up to be like Mervyn. I joined Polydor Records, Polygram, and started off as a promotions guy at Motown. Ended up as head of black music after 15 or so years for Polydor Records, and oversaw Interscope Records, the launch of careers of people like Black Eyed Peas, Pussycat Dolls, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Timbaland, and many others along the way, 50 Cent. So I guess I've been involved in music and the culture since my early days when I was a sweaty little teenager working for Soul to Soul in the background, making beats, to where I am now, where I'm still running club events under the name Catch a Groove and On My Soul.
Hi, so I'm Jay Davidson, and I entered the music business probably around the same time as Matt. I started my music industry career straight out of university at Kiss FM radio at a time when Matt was a DJ on Kiss, and I was a marketer, so I worked in marketing the radio station through clubs and events, and then jumped into a record label from the radio. And I started off as an assistant. I worked myself up into a marketing manager for Def Jam Recordings. So that was at a time of Motel Jordan, Onyx, Redman, Method Man, Warren G, and that entire moment in hip-hop, Foxy Brown. And I progressed from there to Raucous Records, which is like an underground hip-hop label where Eminem started, Mos Def, Ty Kweli, Black Star, and that lyricist lounge era of hip-hop. Left from there and progressed. Oh, actually, I had a moment when I was a events manager for MTV Europe and put on festivals in Europe for MTV Europe. And then went to the BBC to be the launch manager of BBC Radio 1 Extra and launched that radio station. That was Network X, and we started it and then launched it to become BBC Radio 1 Extra, and I stayed there for 4 years. And then bounced over to BBC 3, so I kind of bounced from music into television, where I spent the rest of my career, well, up until now, and I've bounced into film. So but music and black music culture, because I'm a very politically black woman, and love my culture, and music is a very big part of who I am. So I stayed very close to it, and it's still part of everything I do. So whilst I was at the BBC, I commissioned 3 series, and I commissioned a series called Black is a Blue Black, Black is a New Black, for BBC 2, and I also commissioned a hip-hop documentary called The Hip Hop World News, presented by Rodney P, and commissioned a documentary about grime as well. So even though I moved into TV, I kept that music story going and our culture alive in TV.
Jay, Matt, Merv, thank you so much. I must point out Jay never commissioned any of my ideas, but I'm going to quickly move on from that. Look, guys,
She was busy on the Bob Marley film. Come on.
Fair enough. I will find it in my heart to forgive her before I die. Anyway, but look, let's just start from the beginning or so. So you guys were aware, you were in the business, you know what's going on. 20-something-year-old Puff Daddy in the early 90s. How does a young man, really preciously young, who was fired from the internship and had a bit of baggage to him or so, but clearly knew the culture and everything else, how does that young man become so powerful so quickly? And in addition to that too, just thinking that, because what was his actual discernible talent? That's not to dismiss him, but I'm just saying what was, because he wasn't a musician per se, he wasn't the best rapper or writer, but he was a man who managed to somehow become really powerful, really talented, and to become a talent magnet at the same time. So, please.
So I first met Puffy in his office. When they gave me the labels, I said, okay, fine, what I need to do is go to America, and I'll spend some time with L.A. Reid, I'll spend some time with Dallas Austin, and I'll spend some time with Puffy. And I spent a day with him at the corner of his desk, watching just how he worked and how and why he did the things he did. And he was a megalomaniac. He's somebody who was completely embedded in the black culture of New York. He understood what his consumers wanted, and that's the most important thing. I think one of the things I said when we first had the street team, when they said, "Oh, what do we need to do?" I said, "Just do it, because what they don't know." And it's kind of, I was always getting blocked by, this record won't get on radio. Well, suddenly we bypass the radio, we go to the barber shops, we go to the nail parlours, we'll go to the youth centres. And our records charted without any radio and got radio after. What Puffy did was understand how to bypass all the rigmarole of business to get to his consumers, and he did that very well. He had mixtapes, he had street teams, in New York and outside clubs handing out his flyers and his music. And as I said, he was a megalomaniac. He thought he was a fashion designer. He thought he was a video commissioner. He was obviously a music producer, but he was an A&R man and a businessman as well. So he completely ran his company. So although they had different departments, he was head of every department. And what I saw in that 4 or 5 hours I spent with him, his ability to skip from one subject to another subject and come back to the conversation that he was having with me. And I think that's quite an incredible feat to be that what's the word? To be that committed to your belief that, above all else, he took chances. He took a lot of chances. He was given a lot of money to take chances, but
He made a lot.
He made a lot of money.
Sorry, Jay, you were about to say something.
No, I was just going to say that it's also about timing and where America was at that time in terms of youth culture. It came around at the right time as well. So it was a time when consumerism was growing. It was a time when youth culture, especially black music culture, it was at a time when it was the dominant culture as far as youth culture is concerned. So when you have someone like Buffy come along, who at the time wasn't trying to be an artist, I mean that changed, but he wasn't trying to be an artist at that time, and he understood, like Murph said, he understood the culture, he understood what was missing, the presence of which he could make a difference. You got to understand, our culture is a culture governed by people who are not business-minded, who are not thinking long-term, they're not thinking about strategy, they're just living their best life and trying to make it. And you've got somebody who recognises how powerful black creativity is and was able to wrap his business mind around it, which is what a hustler mind does. His dad was a hustler, he understood that work, and our culture was his commodity that he was able to exploit in as many ways as he could. And I say exploit not in a bad way, I say exploit in terms of understanding what was used, what he could sell, and then made sure that he was in a position to do so. And it was also that bridge between corporate America and money and our culture. And when you have that link, there are no limits really, because our culture dominates fashion, our culture dominates lexicon, language, how people express themselves, art, everything. So you can take that same mentality and you can replicate it at a time when America was and the world was in this space of money making, especially in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, consumerism was off the chart, and you have this man who can see that.
So, sorry, Matt, do you want to jump in and I'll come back to the consumerism point in a couple of seconds? Sorry, Matt, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, Jay touched on it, Puffy's mindset was born from his background. People don't understand that his mother was a teacher, so there was an element of education first and foremost. He went on to Howard University, studied business, so he had that in him. He had that whole business aspect. He had the hustler mentality from his dad, because his dad was, for want of a better description, a right-hand man to Frank White, who, was a big drug lord at the time. And at the same time, his dad came from the army. So he had that mentality of, things are done the right way and you work hard and you go all the hours. And that's the one thing that, I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with Andre Harrell, with my time with Andre at Motown, and we then went on to do some other stuff with an artist called Robin Thicke. And we spoke at length about Puffy and his movement from being an intern to where he got to in Uptown and then on to Bad Boy. And he basically said that he recognised, because Andre was his mentor, that he recognised that Puffy was an artist who didn't realise he was an artist, but he was also a label boss and he needed to have his own label. He wasn't so much pushed out of Uptown, he was basically given the option of kind of always standing in behind Andre, which he was never going to do, or he was given the opportunity to go out there and become his own boss and sit alongside bosses. So, the sort of notion that he was kind of pushed out of Uptown isn't quite right. He in Andre's words, he said he'd become bigger than Uptown. Uptown was a small subsidiary of the Universal MTA Group, and when he joined Arista under Clive, I believe it was Clive that brought him in, Bad Boy, he was given a label that effectively had more power than Motown, had more power than Uptown. It was the biggest black music label of that period, and he was the absolute leader of everything on that sort of hip-hop culture. Anything you could think of, whether it was R&B or hip-hop or the mashup that became hip-hop R&B, he was the absolute leader of all of that. He had his finger on the pulse for everything in terms of fashion, music, dance, the video directors, the dancers, the models, the celebrity hookups. He had his finger on everything.
Can I just say, I think if we leave with anything today, is that I think that what Puffy is, and what he was at that time, was a visionary. He saw the homogenized black culture long before everybody saw what's going on now, where actually there's no difference between a black kid and a white kid and what clothes they wear and what shops they go to. And he saw that years and years ago, and realised actually my music is for this homogenised culture. It's not for black people, it's not for white people, it's for everybody.
Can I just say that there was a blueprint before Puffy, which people often don't cite. Maybe it's because I worked for the label, but there was a man called Russell Simmons who was doing that. Do you know what I mean? So Russell had Def Comedy Jam, and Russell didn't feel like Puff on the whole stage. No. But what I'm saying is I understand that. What I'm saying is that there was a blueprint there, and then you have a next generation that comes along, and you have a time where consumerism had grown, and our culture had grown a lot. But what I'm saying is that the blueprint of understanding, hold on a second, I can have a fashion brand, I can have a TV brand, I can have alcohol, I can have all these things. There was a blueprint already, and what people do is they build on what they see and exploit a time when no one else is doing it. And so he was able to do it on steroids. Do you know what I mean?
That's the word.
That's definitely the word. He put our culture on steroids, without a doubt.
It's a fascinating thing. So, just thinking of the elements. Sorry, guys, I know my hip hoppers are in here tonight, so you guys are too silent for me right now. So, listen, guys, if you've got anything to say, please interject. We're not recording a podcast. We're not podcast bros over here. Please, if you have anything, point of blackness, say it. Come up, say it. But let's talk about consumerism, for example, right now. Do you think that Puff was? Because if you look at, say, second verse, Hypnotize. I'm not even going to repeat it because I look too much like these people. Anyway, but you then look at the name dropping of brands to the point where it's almost like you're listing. And I was about 18 years old when that came out, and it was really, really just like you're trying to find out about these things. You're realizing these are really super expensive stuff to the point where it becomes so much exuberance, and it's almost like maybe I'll ask as a question. Do you think that consumerism, or hip-hop as a vehicle for consumerism, was something that Puff Daddy actually also put on steroids, or was something that came before him?
I don't think he was a creator of that. I think there was always, hip-hop artists and other artists, already consumed by consumerism in the lyrics that they created and the brands that they followed. I think he just managed to make it a little bit more commercial. And he made it commercial by taking what he thought was perhaps the best choruses that he could think of, adding that with some really, really strong, powerful lyrics, hip-hop lyrics. And then it wasn't then, I think up until then, a lot of people thought that a hip hop club or a hip hop venue, it was going to be all guys because girls don't go.
Sausage Factory.
Yeah, girls don't go to hip hop because it's too aggressive. Da, 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 da.
I was one.
But what he did by adding these choruses, he made all the tunes more danceable, more accessible, and you could hear him on the radio. You could hear him in the club, and you could hear him in the radio. And I think that mould he broke, and I think the brands that he took along with him just,
So like hip hop soul was really something which he really blew, because you got Mary J. Blige,
Yep.
you had Jodeci.
Yep.
At that time, who was bigger? In terms of getting superstars, it's crazy now that the average non-hip hop consumer would even know, like now would even know who Jodeci is, which is mad because Jodeci were the group, so was Mary J. Blige, the group, and blending R&B and hip hop.
Lufinist, do you know who Jodeci is? Okay, he does, yeah, that's the guy. Sorry, that was the young man who was rapping here.
That is a low blow.
Sorry, no, his dad's right here, his dad's one of us, so yeah. So I just had to make sure that we're not just giving the stage to a young man who doesn't know who Jodeci is. Sorry, Lufinist, yeah, please. Sorry,
But you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But blending R&B and hip hop, absolutely, because I used to be a hip hop raver, and I was one of the few women who rave to hip hop, go to hip hop clubs, because my friends didn't go. But when you have popular R&B hooks, choruses, women, and they made it look accessible, made it sexy. Hip hop wasn't sexy. I used to literally just wear baggy jeans, Tims. It wasn't.
So you didn't find Gangstar, Guru and Premier,
Of course.
Jerry the Damager. You didn't find them too appealing.
It wasn't. No, those are my artists. But what I'm saying is, for women, it wasn't really something that they used to go to. It used to be a handful of women and loads of guys. And that era of bad boy really transformed that. So all of a sudden, it was the labels. It was looking. It was a look. It was glamorized, and it was also the kind of the moment when they, when, like it or not, you brought this sort of mafiosi hip hop, where hip hop was aligned with money. It was Italian gangsters. It was names, and hip hop was referencing Italian gangs.
Wu Gambinos.
Exactly, and South American cartels. And with that comes money and drugs and everything else. And they pulled that through, and then you mix that with R&B. It was a combination which was intoxicating to young people.
Was it just effectively pop music, essentially, in retrospect?
Was it pop music? Okay, define pop music. Is it popular? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's pop music. Yeah, okay.
But there's a
maybe.
particular sound.
But it's black pop music. It's no different from Motown. Was Motown pop music, or was it black music?
And they used Motown
And
music.
what was clever about him was he took all of his knowledge from working in the club environment and events, and he realized in order to become as big and as wide as possible, he had to reach as many people as possible and be as successful as possible. So it meant making sure that it's not just the guys that like music, it's also the women. So that's the reason why he'd have the A side would be Juicy, where they're singing along to a classic and it's a catchy chorus, and the B side would be for the guys. So who is this? Page me at 5:46 in the morning, crack of dawning, now you're yawning. That's the kind of shit guys like. But the A side is where the ladies were at, where the radio stations were at, that's where the clubs were at. So it made everyone want to go out and buy the record, because back then it was about records. It wasn't about downloads and streams, it was about records, CDs, cassettes. So he was very clever in the way that he piggybacked the street to the commercial, and he made the street commercial and the commercial street.
We go.
I don't wanna know another R. Kelly. Keep it on the low.
We can't accuse him of it.
I'm not kidding. I'm just making a point.
Yeah, I get what you mean, yeah.
Cause my heart can't take it anymore. So if you've done something, please don't let it show. Oh baby. A lot of us don't want to know about the people, because we like their songs. We saw it with Boondocks and R. Kelly. We saw, anyone who's seen the Boondocks knows this whole episode that was about the idea of people going, R. Kelly can't do anything because I believe I can fly, right? And that goes beyond accusations of kiddie fiddling. It goes beyond accusations of domestic abuse. It goes beyond that. It goes to what we're talking about today. Those of us, and not everyone in this room will espouse a radical left-wing politics, but some of us will. Those of us who do will give exceptions when it comes to a private jet that's from an artist that we really, really like. And we like that song. You know, we jive to that tune. And so Gucci is Gucci with them. But then outside of that, we're leftists. We espouse this radical politics. And so to what extent do we as a community kind of give exceptions in the world of celebrity, beyond just the world of music, but also the world of celebrity, to our values when it comes to things like R. Kelly and the accusations which were put against him, and I won't give any more accusations, no, don't worry, but we can extrapolate from that, and also to the general ideas of consumerism which are so infused in the entertainment world.
Thank you. We'll take one more point of blackness and we'll come back to you guys. Just one moment, and then you guys can respond.
Thank you. My point follows on from what the brothers just said.
You're not going to sing, are you?
No. But I think we have to respect to the panel and all that they've outlined Puffy's great career, but he's undoubtedly a business marketing genius, but I think now we have to take him out of the category of music mogul and put him into the category of sex offender. So, he was accused of rape and he paid off the woman, so I think that's...
No, that is true. He was accused of a range of different things, but...
And he settled out of court the day after the charges were brought. The day after.
No, but hold on.
He didn't even argue about it. Like,
the key thing about that is I can't argue that. He's not here to defend himself.
Right, fine.
So it's not really the fairest thing for us to do. We said this evening that we can't really deal with it.
I'd like to make a wider point. A wider point on this.
So
the wider point is that we've seen our entertainment moguls, like Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Russell Simmons, who's been mentioned tonight, is now living in exile in Bali. Do we feel that these are just outliers? These are exceptions? Or do we think that actually these guys, our heroes, that their outrageous behaviour is more reflective of something that's endemic throughout the whole industry, and these just have to be the most high-profile examples?
I think that's
So I look at the music industry across the board, and I've been privileged to be in rooms with some very powerful people that make a lot of decisions, spend a lot of money, and obviously make a lot of money. And I sometimes wonder if there's other things at play in terms of we have, for want of a better description, our black superheroes, the likes of the Puffys and the Jay-Z's of this world that reach these echelons of owning these super powerful companies, being billionaires, ranked by Forbes, and then all of a sudden their career is being dragged down by different reasons, and sometimes it's sex, and sometimes it's money, sometimes it's business deals, and all these different things. And I sometimes wonder if there's other things at play. You know, there have been rumours where people are saying that these people are becoming too powerful, and that the reason why Bill Cosby was brought down was because of this, that, and the other, and the reason why Puffy's... Listen, I'm just giving you a point of view. I'm just giving you a point of view. I'm not saying it's true, but you have to wonder, without being in the room and knowing the full story, because there are always two sides to the story, whether these things are happening or not.
We have points of black. Sorry, Jodie, but take the floor.
Hi, point of blackness.
Thank you.
I think that you can say that there may be other things at play, but ultimately, if you're black, you know you're black. You know that you're not going to get the same treatment if you get dragged as the white guy. So when you're doing your behaviour, you're carrying on a certain way, be prepared for that. You're not beyond accountability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's an interesting point that other people made about whether we're looking at these people as our heroes and sort of not making them accountable. Firstly, I think with the Puffy scenario, obviously he hasn't been tried yet, so we'll have to see how that plays out, but it's not looking good. And I think sort of saying someone's guilty because they settled out of court, actually it's the company that settled that court case. So it's not him directly. I think he would have, actually if he had any sense, he probably would have settled that much earlier and not had it dragged out into the public. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. That's all.
You make a very good point, Jodie. Sorry, Jodie's an old friend of mine.
And also, sorry, I'm going to get this one first because she won't take it. Jodie was his PR, or PR of the Bad Boy Records.
So yeah.
At the record label BNG, she was head of press.
Jodie's point is very correct. The court case that Cassie brought wasn't actually against Puffy, it was against his companies. And the companies and the insurance people were the ones who decided to settle. And whether it's a technicality or it's a fact.
Sorry, can I just say something? Can I say something? It would be, I understand you. Lee, I understand you. Jodie, I understand you. But one thing we do have to say is that the man is not, we can't litigate something of this nature here without going, because he's just not, look guys.
Look, Nelson, I'm
just can I say one thing, Jane? Can I say one thing, guys? The block is hot enough to be actually hosting this thing or so, let alone be slandering somebody or libeling somebody in the process or so. So I don't want us to go, that's why I was there from the beginning. We're talking about consumerism, capitalism and culture as opposed to criminality. Do you mind if we just...
No, the problem is though, is that that we're having this discussion at this point in time. So as much as we're going to talk about black culture, I mean, first of all, I take issue actually with calling him the king of black culture, because at no time I think he was the king of black culture. You have to define what you think black culture is. And my definition of black culture goes far deeper and far more spiritually and it's so far wide reaching that I would never put him as king of black culture at any point, even when he was. That's first thing. Secondly, to Lee's point, none of these things that are coming to light were really secrets, as far as I can understand it. The rumours have been going on for a while. Just like the rumours of Bill Cosby was outed by a comedian. So there was nothing secret about it. So Jodie's point is correct, is that the behaviour of these people is known and left to happen until such time that they're no longer useful. That's the point. That's what I'm going to say about that.
I am not defending anybody. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. So, guys, I'm telling you, I run a black event called Uppity. Trust me, I'm a black man who runs a black event called Uppity. The block is hot for me. Please, do not land me in more drama than I'm already in of it. If there's no Uppity next month, it's Jay's fault. But let's keep going. We've got Point Blackness over here. We've got about 10 more minutes on this segment, then we will swiftly move on. Sorry, please. Go ahead.
Point Blackness. I was never a big fan of Diddy, to be quite honest. But I reckon I wasn't. But I recognise his importance, absolutely, in the music business, and I do recognise his influence. You cannot deny that. And I'm not going to judge him. It's very easy to judge. There's a lot of things that go on in all sorts of industries that are, as long as the person's making money, people just keep quiet and turn a blind eye. And it seems to be one of those situations where it's either he was about to make a power move or he stopped being able to make money. So I'm not going to judge him, but yeah, definitely I recognise his importance and his influence. I think it's a bit harsh we judging him because and taking the moral high ground, because there's a lot of people still out there today who probably done far worse than what he's accused of.
I don't know about that.
Would you like to say anything? I'm Joe King. Sorry.
Point of Blackness. So, as somebody who grew up with P. Diddy and R. Kelly, and the music invokes something in my soul. Some of those songs were tunes. Now, am I allowed to listen to them?
Yes.
I am. Because there's that conflict in my soul where I'm like, I'm putting money in. These people, what do I do? Because I no longer listen to R. Kelly, and but I want to.
The issue with creativity is that it's not a popularity contest, and it's not about people very bad people do amazing things, right? And this is whether you're an actor, actors, writers, any type of bad people everywhere. So you literally wouldn't listen to anything. You wouldn't, because if it's not the artist, it's a producer. If it's not the producer, it's someone else. It's a composer who did some really dark things. So you wouldn't listen to anything, really.
Well, I'm going now to listen to
Can I just...
I don't know, because TG Jakes right now.
Can we stop the Sorry, please.
Can I just say that I certainly didn't come here to defend Puffy, and I think, looking around the room, I probably spent the most amount of time with him than anybody else in this room. I didn't see anything. I'm not saying there wasn't anything, but I'm not here to talk about that. We're talking about the influence of his music, the music that I worked, the music that my team worked, and I can tell you that it was groundbreaking at the time and still has influence. All the other stuff you can talk about amongst yourselves or whatever, but I'm not here to talk about that.
Fair enough. Point the blackness, they were the twin goose rats on the guard. Can we have a, sorry brother, what's the magic words?
Point of blackness.
Magic.
Just for a bit of context, my favourite rapper is Tupac, so if you put the Tupac Biggie stuff to the side for a second.
You're not going to slander him on the two.
No, it's actually just context. Hearing everything, especially you two said about Bad Boy Records, Interscope and whatnot in that context, since the accusations came out, I tried to put my own hip hop viewpoints to the side and consider what was being said. But hearing you go over what he has achieved and what he also survived in the industry, people like Suge Knight have fallen to the side, Irv Gotti fallen to the side, and I think the thing about people like Jay-Z and Diddy, what they represent is being able to make a transition, have a level of ownership, be able to build up leverage. Biggie died in what, 96? 97. Diddy's still relevant. And I think in hearing the account just now, it's kind of like a fallen hero. And that's a side of it that I think is a shame, because I think there are a lot of young black individuals who feel disenfranchised, and when you then see examples like this, I guess the point's not been made, but I just wanted to...
Your point's made for real.
Sorry, can we get the microphone? Sorry, General.
Just to kind of continue what I guess everyone is saying in terms of, I know we spoke about consumerism, but there's an element of consumerism that people are forgetting, which it targets certain demographics, and it targets vulnerable people as well, particularly. So when we think about consumerism, it's not just the economic technique that we're talking about, it's also the fact that you've tied up aspiration in this economic system, which is now acting as a defence against these great men who have fallen from grace. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is that is the concept of profits like paralysing us to the point where we can't even give critique where it's due. The economic system doesn't discriminate in terms of who will technically make it on top unless you're willing to get there on top. And I think that's how we all have to learn as like black people from ethnic minorities. It's not our inability to get to those spaces. It's the fact that when you get to those spaces, you can still succumb to the same evils that people who beside you are different colours will succumb to. So I think it's us trying to deconstruct and understand it's not mutually exclusive that Diddy's a great man, but also did these things allegedly. I think it's also for us to be like, if it wasn't Diddy, would we say he didn't do those things? No, we expect those people to do those things. Because it's Diddy, we first have to put his CV before his accusation, which I think, similar to the R. Kelly thing, maybe if you were a young black woman who they were targeting, you wouldn't see it as, let's put his CV beforehand. And at the time when he was doing it, they were still saying it. So again, with Diddy, because it affects, quote unquote, the mandem and all the aspirational things you did when you didn't have money in your pocket, and now you kind of like mastered your own role model on top of him. Now that he's fallen, you have a difficult ability to say, actually, I built my dream on someone who was someone who was technically evil. And I think we have to be honest about that. If not, we hide it, then we have generations who come up creating the same people who are too big to fail, and then we say, oh, black culture has fallen.
Point of blackness. It's really quick. I think that the young gentleman over there sort of touched on it, and for those of us in the room that are old enough, we remember '97 when Biggie died.
Biggie was assassinated. When Biggie was assassinated.
When he was assassinated. Thank you for the correction. I think that was a very pivotal point in the trajectory of P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever he was calling himself at the time, because had that not happened, and I don't think we've actually touched on it, had that not happened and had Biggie not died, what would that look like? You know, how would his trajectory look like? Because suddenly, you know, this thing happened in the hip hop world, and it was epic. We had, Tupac dying before, and then Biggie dying after that. You know, had that not happened, what would have been the landscape? How would that trajectory? How would his popularity have been? Because suddenly he was more mainstream. Yes, he was speaking to his base and, you know, the black culture and the black community and all of that, and that there was community there. But but then he got a lot more mainstream after that. What would that have looked like? I just love your opinion on that.
Any thoughts on that?
Okay, so I can remember the very night Biggie died, because he was due to be on a plane that night coming to London, and my son who's over there was 4 at the time, and he wasn't sleeping, and I got a call from the manager to say that Biggie's not coming. Needless to say, there was a few effing words, and I said, this is ridiculous. You know, we've got a listening session, and an album launch and everything. And he said, well, he's decided to go to a party, and I hung up the phone. And I took the dog for a walk, I think. I took the dog for a walk over the common where I was living, and about an hour later the phone rang, and he said, Biggie's been shot. And I said, what do you mean he's been shot? He said, he's dead. And that didn't hit me in fact, it didn't really hit me until the next day when, you know, people like Jasmine and you guys turned up in our boardroom to hear a record that was going to be presented by Puffy and Biggie. That didn't happen. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. I don't think Puffy would be what he is without, you know, the death of Biggie. That was the catalyst for you know, the Faith Evans tribute, the 112, you know, and for him to realise that actually his cash cow had to be him. And he turned himself into his cash cow, and that's how he became this. Yeah.
I'm just going to add on to what Mervyn just said, because I had a friend that was working in promotions for Arista in America and was actually in LA that night at that party that Biggie didn't want to go to, that was dragged along to. And I got a call at about 7 a.m. in the morning. It was a Sunday morning, I'll never forget it, because I had a show Sunday afternoon. And I had planned my show from the night before, and I get this call from my friend, and he said to me, Biggie's passed away. And I was fast asleep, and I was like, you sorry, say that again? He said to me, Biggie's passed away. I said, this has to be a wind-up, because I know he's coming to London. He said, no, this is the truth, I swear on my life. And my heart sank. And that Sunday, I did my entire show as a dedication to Biggie. And I know for a lot of people, they didn't know it even happened at that point until they heard the show. So even now, people still tell me that show kind of touched them a little bit, and it touched me in a way. But then when I look back at it, I do know, as far as I'm concerned, if Biggie was still with us, the likes of Jay-Z and Diddy, I don't believe maybe as big as they are now. Because even some of what Jay-Z did after Biggie, if you listen carefully to a lot of the lyrical content and what he was doing, he actually uses a lot of Biggie's lyrics. So I think Biggie was an architect for a lot of the success that the likes of Bad Boy and obviously, you know, Rockefeller and then Rock Nation went on to have, and that lifestyle that they kind of promoted was already in the mainstream, and that just made it even more mainstream, the passing of Biggie. So for me, you know, the lyric is, he got it all time, passed away on March 9th. I believe so. Sorry, Tupac friends.
Thank you very much. You hear a lot from me in these things, but not tonight. We're not going to. You're in luck. So I'm going to pretty much disappear a little bit right now and leave you in much more capable hands. Ladies and gentlemen, at Uppity we have long been accused, dare I even say slandered, of for not actually being a safe space for right-leaning voices. That we are often accused of being a place that's only friendly to certain types of people, people such as myself, which I think is really unfair to say. So tonight we are proud to announce that the person who will be leading the trial of forgiveness is none other than the great Albie Amankona.
Introduction now, and everyone, it's so wonderful to see you all, and some of my friends from GB News and other broadcasters. It's all nice to see you all this evening. So we've got a very important decision to make tonight. When I say we, I mean you, the jury. And what you're going to have to decide on is the concept of forgiveness. Do we forgive racists? Is it in the interest of people from ethnic minority backgrounds who forgive racists for being racist if they apologise and show contrition? Or do we not? And what you will need to do this evening, based on the evidence that you hear from our wonderful defence and prosecution, is make that decision. Now, cast aside any preconceptions you might have about the topic, thoughts you might have about that particular incident involving a Tory donor called Frank Hester. You'll be making your decision purely based on the evidence, the arguments, and the facts that you hear this evening. So we all probably remember where we were a couple of weeks ago now when The Guardian reported that, I think it was the largest Tory donor of all time, Frank Hester, had made some incredibly racist comments about Diane Abbott. I remember I was furious. I was one of the first Tories in the media to go out and say that it was racist and that it was completely unacceptable. Later that day, Kwasi Kwarteng did the same. Later that day, Kenny Bagelot did the same. They both said that Frank had apologised and that he deserved our forgiveness. But many people thought, as he hadn't actually apologised for being racist, had he apologised at all? So today, this evening, tonight, I'm getting mixed up with my timings, I've been up for a long time. Tonight, you are going to decide whether or not racists should be forgiven when they do apologise. Do they deserve contrition? Do they deserve retribution? So, on the arguing that forgiveness helps are Inaya Folarin Imam, who is a journalist, commentator, and founder of the think tank The Equino Project. Round of applause, everyone. Dele Ogden, who is a lawyer, author of a slave ship called Jesus, and founder of the Fatherland Group. Alka Segal Cuthbert, who is a lecturer and author of The Dangers of New Anti-Racism. And arguing the opposite side, so arguing that forgiveness hinders people from ethnic minority backgrounds, we have Professor Robert Beckford, who is a theologian and currently Professor of Climate and Social Justice at the University of Winchester. We also have Yasmin Alibi Brown, who I've sparred with many times on the radio and on television, who is the journalist and broadcaster, author of Ladies Who Punch, and I can tell you she punches, and in defence of political correctness. And last but not least, Chiboza Tina Amadi, who is a writer, theologian, and commentator and PhD researcher on the other side of my page, on the relationship between Christianity and British politics.
So we should reserve the seat of this, so we need the contestants.
Opening statements, and the jury, as I mentioned before, is you. You will figure out what the verdict is based on the facts and the evidence, the arguments you hear tonight. No preconceived notions. Tonight is what you will decide on. There will be a vote at the end of the trial, and then the results will be announced. So I want us to give a big, uppity, black welcome to the lead advocate for Team Forgiveness Helps, Inaya Folarin Imam. Inaya, what book are you going to be? The Martin Luther King swearing in. So, Inaya, Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole black truth?
I do.
Wonderful. I don't really know what I'm doing, but we're going with it. Thank you, Inaya. Please continue.
So thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Nels, and everybody for organising. So I've got a speech, but I just wanted to have a quick detour. I thought it was very interesting, the conversation that we just had about P. Diddy and his history, and I think it does point to some of the priorities within our culture at the moment. That Frank Hester's comments, I think, undoubtedly were racist, but it is important to note that they were reported, allegedly. He denies those comments. And they were, if they were to be true, 5 years ago, in a private conversation. And all of a sudden, you know, we've got our absolutist view on this. When it comes to P. Diddy, because we like his music, because of the role he plays within society, I think it was very interesting that loads of people were very comfortable saying alleged. Well, I would say that having read Cassie's statement, that it's a very credible, authoritative statement about what happened to her, and I'm very comfortable saying that, you know, it's likely true and accurate. So I just think that it is interesting that depending on our cultural values and political outlook is what position we place and what weight we place on different people's accusations of whether they're true or not. So specifically, obviously, this is on the issue of forgiveness. I don't come from a religious background, but I've also always believed that forgiveness is one of the most important moral virtues. And I'm going to outline why I think that that is something that we should all strive towards, not just ethnic minorities or people of colour, but all human beings, because as human beings, fundamentally, which is what's important to me, we're all capable of making mistakes, wrongdoing, and we all deserve mercy, and we all deserve to be able to transcend the things that we've done wrong. So, in our journey through life, we inevitably encounter mistreatment from others. Yet, in the face of adversity, forgiveness emerges as a cornerstone for societal progression. It serves, in my view, as a catalyst for healing, the affirmation of human dignity, the promotion of human agency, and breaking the cycle of hatred. Integral keys towards what we all, I hope, believe is a just society, and the ability and the diverse society that we do live in to be able to actually live together in harmony. So why advocate for forgiveness as a path forward? Because the issue, in my view, transcends just the mere fact of whether forgiveness hinders people of colour. But I also think the deeper question is how the absence of forgiveness actually serves our interests. Does nurturing grudges, fostering fear, contribute to realising the potential of ethnic minorities? And from my perspective, the answer is a resounding no. When we look at the deeper matter, we recognise that accumulating animosity and bitterness does not pave the way for progress. Instead, it perpetuates the cycle of conflict and stagnation, hampering the ability of people of colour to thrive and excel in various aspects of their lives. There are many now, as you see in culture, that don't just think that individuals that make or do things wrong in the here and now should not be forgiven, but actually descendants of those that committed wrongdoing hundreds of years ago should have to atone for the sins of their ancestors. Where does it end? Where does this zero-sum game actually end? A fundamental aspect of human interaction, if you come from a Christian perspective, but other perspectives also, is to treat people how we want to be treated ourselves. This ethos underscores empathy and understanding, acknowledging the shared fallibility or the shared ability of all of us to have shortcomings as human beings. This leads me to one of my most difficult contentions with contemporary anti-racism. By vilifying individuals like Frank Hester and denying them the possibility of redemption, there's a subtle elevation of white people to a pedestal of moral superiority. And what I mean by that is because they suggest that almost white people should not be able to do any wrong, that they contain superhuman capabilities, immune from the flaws and mishaps inherent in humanity. Well, I think white people are similar to all other people because they can do wrong. Black people, Asian people, whatever background you come from. We should all have the capacity to do wrong and therefore have the capacity to be forgiven. I don't hold white people to different moral standards. I also think an important other biblical principle is the question of thou without sin shall cast the first stone. I mean, I can see people laughing, point of blackness if you disagree.
Point of blackness.
Well, no one said anything until I asked. If you have a disagreement,
We'll come to the point of blackness once we finish the opening. Once we finish the opening statements, we'll come back to point of blackness. Yeah.
Well, I welcome people having lots of different perspectives. Feel free to challenge me. The second Christian principle that I think is really important is thou without sin shall cast the first stone. I think that I challenge anyone to come from a position of moral purity where they have never misstepped or done anything wrong. As Martin Luther King eloquently put it, he who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. Then my second point is, regarding forgiveness, who holds the authority to grant it? While it undoubtedly extends beyond individuals to encompass broader societal considerations, it can't be just bestowed by some kind of centralised authority. Forgiveness is a personal and subjective matter and cannot be dictated or mandated. It's not clear to me that groups are moral agents that can grant forgiveness. Is there a council or committee of individuals, regardless of race or background, empowered to decide for the entirety of a group? Surely that would suggest that black people operate in some kind of hive mind, which I fundamentally reject and hopefully other people do. And indeed, there have been occasions where black people have fundamentally disagreed. I remember a few years ago when the singer that most people know, Adele, posted a photo of herself with Bantu knots and Jamaican-inspired bikini because of Notting Hill Carnival. Many black Americans took to Twitter to condemn her as a cultural appropriator. Some people even said as far as that she was racist. But actually, many other black Britons in the UK thought that was a misunderstanding of the historical development of Notting Hill Carnival. And many other Caribbean people thought that this was a great celebration of their culture. So I think it's important to recognise that there is not this homogenous authority that thinks on behalf of black people. But this isn't to say that there is an objective moral standards. I think that there is. But with that, there is also proportionality. If leading civil rights activists can promote reconciliation at the height of racism, even famous former slave and abolitionist Frederick Douglass promoting freedom of speech during the slave trade, then who am I to say that Frank Hester, who made nasty remarks in a private conversation 5 or so years ago and has apologised for those comments, cannot be forgiven? He has apologised. He actually said that he had contacted Diane Abbott 2 or 3 times and not heard from her. You can get
He said he was sorry. Sorry, guys. We'll come to point of blackness.
We'll come to point of blackness when Inai is finished. Thank you very much. It's not a nonsense. So we stick by rules here. Inai, carry on.
Actually look at the facts that he has said that he tried to apologise. But regardless, I'm not here. I think his comments are racist and I don't deny that. My point is whether I think that he should be forgiven for those things.
That's Diane.
So, by letting go of negative emotions associated with past grievances, individuals free themselves from the shackle of the past and reclaim their agency over their own lives. You cannot change the past, but you can change the present and the future. French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas once said, "Forgiveness acts upon the past, somehow repeats the event, purifying it." Similarly, Hannah Arendt, who argued that forgiveness alters the ethical significance of the wrongdoer's past by keeping it from having a permanent and fixed character. Ultimately, I choose to forgive, for I would want to be forgiven if I had done wrong, but also so that I could be freed from the burden of carrying bitterness and anger. I will end on this final quote by Christian author Louis Smedes. "To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you." Thank you.
Thanks very quickly, because some people had to leave earlier. We're going to jump straight to Yasmin Alibide Brown, who has to nip off very quickly. But Yasmin, please do swear upon your book which I believe is this.
Albie, can you name the book too whilst you're there too?
It's my little prayer book.
That's great. That's perfect, yep.
Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and nothing but the black truth?
Yes. Or do I say yes?
Yes. Marvellous, thank you. I was going to take it away.
Thank you all, and forgive me. I didn't realise how the evening was going to be shaped, and I do need to leave before I wanted to. Thank you for inviting me, Nels. I think there's personal forgiveness, and there are many things I would never forgive people for what they've done. My ex-husband knows what I mean. 35 years on, he still regrets leaving me. Forgiveness. I think there are some arguments that were made earlier which are entirely honourable. But I'm talking about a different kind of forgiveness. The kind of forgiveness that, for example, Diane is the only one who can forgive what happened. And she has not been able to use that right. And I find that an abomination. I don't care what that bastard said before or after. It's Diane, who's my friend, who matters to me. I think often forgiveness is pressure put on people to be good. You know what it's like to be black and Asian. We always have to be good and kind and nicer than nice. It becomes a means for irresolution. Things are not resolved with forgiveness. Inaction. It kind of sprinkling stains, deep stains. It whitewashes history. It whitewashes crimes. It rewards the faithless, ex-husband. And those who hurt us. I mean, I really respect the roots of forgiveness which are in Christianity. Being a Muslim, we're very vengeful and not good. And I really do admire this idea, up to a point, that God will forgive me and everybody else. But actually then I think God, he or she, shouldn't forgive everybody. Those people who are killing babies in Palestine, I hope nobody will ever forgive. There are some crimes that cannot be forgiven. Okay? I feel that so strongly. And then I was also thinking about cases. I remember watching this scenario like it was a play. Dallas officer, I think she was called Amber Geiger, is how you pronounce it, who killed her neighbor. Both of them, Jean, claimed she thought she was going into her own apartment and there was an intruder there, and she shot her dead. Okay, she got 10 years, and she will probably do 5. She's probably out. And the victim's brother hugged her and forgave her, and the judge hugged her. How many times do black people who have committed crimes in the United States get these hugs? How many times? What kind of forgiveness is it? And it always is from black to white. Okay, what kind of forgiveness is this? Emmanuel Church killing of 9 worshippers in 2015. This was the 100th church slaying since 1956. I'm old enough to remember at the age of 6 a slaying in a church in America and being incredibly upset because I think 2 children were slain. Okay? And yet, here we are. No right to be angry. The perpetrator, I can't remember his name, I don't want to remember his name, has felt absolutely no contrition, no guilt, nothing. And here are really good people, and I'm not criticizing them, good Christians, forgiving him. This is Uncle Tom. Remember Uncle Tom? Freedom through forgiveness? And we know where that led. So I think it's a convenient thing, and I realize that when you have very little power in the United States or even here, when a George Floyd can happen to anyone, anytime, especially for a black man, that forgiveness may be a way of, I don't know, taking a breath, using whatever you have to survive. But we should not ever kind of raise it to the level of a must-do, that this is what we all have to be. Yeah. I want to come to 2 or 3 examples before I end. Obviously, there's a religious, as I said, the religious imperative if you're a good Christian, and I honor you if you are. But as Justin Hansford of the Civil Rights Centre at Howard Law, he said, I think, a very important thing, that the culture of forgiveness on the part of Black American, African American, the African American community derives from the US never condoning black anger. The angry black man. I am frequently referred to as the angry brown woman. Okay, if you're angry, because I am, all of the time, it's disallowed. They describe you as controversial. They describe you as angry, and this is what he said: you don't get the right to be angry in white America if you are black, and so the forgiveness is a kind of fallback. Remember that. And my final points are these. I'm going to give the last one as an example, a test, would you forgive or not? But the thing that's really been bugging me, and I've been thinking about it a lot, is the Truth and Reconciliation process in South Africa, how long ago was it? Which Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu, 2 great men, really pushed for. But I even then, at that point, completely disagreed with it. Because it took away justice and substituted forgiveness. And today, all these years on, at least 300 cases, which actually at the time they said would be tried in court, remain untried. And I have a friend, a photographer called Gillian Edelstein. She took pictures of this process. And she showed me one picture which made me cry. There was a mother of a victim, and the perpetrator, who was in the police force. He insisted on having a photograph with her, with his arm around her. And she was too, whatever it was she was, to say no, but you can see it in her face that she just wants to stab him. But she has to smile and have this photograph taken. This is forgiveness, enforced forgiveness. I am not for it, and I don't think any of us should be. And here's the test. Here's the test. How many of you know who Richard Drake is? Drake. Do you know who he is? Yes. His family is the richest landowner in Parliament today. The second richest man after our Prime Minister. Okay? His family made the money on slave plantations in Barbados, which apparently was one of the most cruel plantation cultures. Well, he's never apologized. He said, well, I wasn't there. And then I ask, until this country paid off debts to slave owners only 2.5 years ago. To the descendants of slave owners. Okay, they got the money, not the slaves. They weren't there either. So why the hell did they get the money? Right? Now it's even worse. Barbados needs land. They're going to have to pay this man £3 million to get their own land back to build housing for ordinary citizens. Now, would you forgive him? How many of you would forgive me? Forgive this man. Show me. Who's going to forgive him? Come on. At least 1, 2. No? Good. Because some things are not to be forgiven.
So we'll take some points of blackness, if there are any points of blackness. I know many of you have things to say. Stand up. Point of what?
Point of blackness.
Thank you.
I'm going to let other people speak because my voice has been heard a lot tonight. My point of blackness is not for you to say. I just want to say that whenever you forgive, there has to be... You have to actually... It's about intention behind forgiveness. To your point about collective forgiveness, and there's personal forgiveness. And I understand that personal thing where you have to let something go, otherwise that bitterness will eat you up inside. I understand that concept of the Christian meaning of forgiveness. But at the same time, there has to be accountability for one's actions. There has to be a real intention behind it, not as a way to escape any kind of punishment, lose money, save public face, save your company, protect a political party, and all these reasons why people supposedly apologise. And what exactly are they apologising for? What are they apologising for? Racism is a system of oppression that touches every part of society. It's not. I said sorry, like sorry. Forgive me. That's what you say sorry for. Forgive me. That's quite a quick forgiveness. What is he exactly apologising for? Is it to save his pocket? Is it to protect Tory donations to the party that they don't want to give back? What was the apology for? We are so quick to apologise. We get nothing back for that apology. Apparently, he can't be racist because he does business with Jamaica. So do lots of people do business with Jamaica. That's why my last name is Davidson. So let's not get it twisted about what forgiveness is and what we should be apologising. I don't even know what my name is. You understand? I don't know.
We'll go to this gentleman just over here.
Point of blackness. So 2 quick points. Firstly, kind of just building on what you just said. If somebody's hitting you in the face repeatedly, and they're continuing to do so and take this, on a much bigger scale, if they are still hitting you in the face, why are we willing to forgive that person? Until the whole point about forgiveness is the concept of saying sorry. And someone's only sorry when they actually are remorseful, they've stopped doing and continuing to cause the harm that they initially caused, and they've acknowledged on the other side the pain that caused, and they're willing to do something to repair it. That is the point for me at which you're willing to forgive someone. And my second point is just, there's been a lot of talk about forgiveness in religion, and I just wanted to bring a slightly different aspect to it. Not to dismiss it's very important within religion, but my mum was an evolutionary psychologist and an atheist, and she was always really interested, spent her whole career studying disgust and studying shame, and trying to find out what are the social reasons why we choose not to forgive. And there's actually really important fundamentals around why you actually choose to punish and why you choose to ostracize. Because actually, in order to maintain a society whereby the good rules by which we treat each other well are encouraged, and why we are encouraged to behave well, is because when we see examples, and this relates back to that Diddy conversation earlier, when you see examples of somebody flagrantly going against the rules of whatever people think is right, going against what is moral and what is correct, if you don't actually point out those examples and make it known that by punishing them, by publicly humiliating those people, then those rules have no power. And then forgiving those people allows those people to continue to break those rules, and it effectively takes away the meaning of those rules for everyone. So sometimes there's really important reasons that we should consider punishment and ostracization, because that's what justice is about. So those are the 2 things I wanted to say. Not to say that forgiveness, we shouldn't forgive at all, but you don't forgive somebody when they haven't learned effectively their lesson and are willing to do something to
Thank you very much. Do you know, I've always got this perennial producer in my ear telling me when something needs to happen. And I just think we need to hear an opinion of someone that's a little bit more forgiving. Are there any points of blackness here who has some sympathy with being more forgiving? So there's much just next to you.
I've got every sympathy with forgiving in the right circumstances. Nice to see you. Render unto Caesar those things which are Caesar's. Render to God those things which are God. So I used to be a judge here. I used to sentence people. And just a dose of reality here. Hester would have got some criminal penalty if he was charged. Forgiveness, if you have contrition, is about mitigation. It is not about absolution at all. We don't go with the Catholic way into the confession box, say I'm sorry for murdering my brother, and then come out again, it's all okay. It's not okay. So there is a way in which Christianity and every religion forgives, absolutely everyone. And so the distinction is to make a difference between that which is society gives the right to punish. Boris Johnson called people in this room pickaninnies. Boris Johnson and when he was editor of The Spectator, you'll remember, his Tacky called people in Birmingham, 2 girls had just been murdered, the sons and daughters of criminals and thugs who breed like vermin. That was Boris Johnson's newspaper, The Spectator, when he was editor. His reply to me was, I'm sorry I was on holiday. Is that an apology? No. And it's only about the weak state of the law here. And just to give you one, I'm living in Kenya at the moment, just to give you an analogy about what happens from a point of Africanness, not blackness, actually. I'm sorry, but I'd like to just put that in the mix, but I'm not black, I'm not a colour, I'm a person of African descent. Let's catch up. And in terms of in Kenya, there are 1,090 Kenyans buried in unmarked graves. The Committee Maximum Security Prison, the British hung between 1954 and 1958. Dedan Kimathi, the revolutionary leader, cannot be found. King Charles went to Kenya in November, didn't apologise. Even the Germans in Tanzania and Namibia managed to apologise and gave $4.2 billion to the Namibian government, which is not perfect, but at least it's something. Charles instead said, and this is the first time you'll hear this, he called the families of Koitalala Samoy, whose head was removed by Curtis Hennessy, brought to the Natural History Museum, bombed by the Germans, disappeared, and the other replicas or remains of Africans from all over the continent are sitting in the British Museum, in the Natural History Museum, to now in the vaults and not being returned. And King Charles says, well, I'll meet 6 families and I just want to work out how we may improve our relationships with Kenya. What the F? Really? I'm sorry? And so he's called somebody in the Foreign Office, a nice guy called Bilal, to write a report by the end of July, who's touring Kenya as we speak, to ask Kenyans how they can, in a sense, improve those relations. Whether this government does anything, I very much doubt, because they're as bastard racist, as xenophobic as you can possibly come as the next flight to Rwanda will show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Very much. And the other thing, one other little point. Sometimes even personal unforgiveness is very good for the soul. Don't believe people who say it rots your soul. It really energizes it.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you, Yasmin. And next up we have Alka Sigal. Cuthbert, we're going to give a massive round of applause to. Hopefully she'll energise you as much as Yasmin. Alka, what book are you swearing on this evening?
A real favourite of mine, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass.
Thank you, Alka. Do you swear to tell nothing but the truth, the black truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Alka. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to start off by saying that I forgive Diane Abbott for her anti-Semitic mark she made in public. I think it's been very clear, it's what's... I'll know if you let me finish. I'm about to tell you. There are a couple of things that have come up, I think, very important in the discussion, which is I'm not for anything being enforced. And I think we can see the reason for that in the point that Elia started off with. We ourselves have seen the difficulty of coming to a judgment on somebody's guilt, blame, and proportionality in the case of Puff Daddy. Imagine how much more complicated it is in all those situations of people in public lives with political power. Hester made his comment in private, We go down a very dangerous route if we want to live in a free and democratic society, if we start saying that what people say in private, like they're trying to do in Scotland, should be subject to criminal law. So for that reason, I think Hester's apology should be accepted. Now, I'm not a Christian, so I'm not going to put a religious argument for forgiveness. There's basically two main, really important reasons that I think benefit everybody who live in a society, whatever their colour, why I think we should always err in favour of forgiveness rather than intolerance, because that's what the opposite of forgiveness is. First of all, just to say, forgiveness does not preclude, it doesn't preclude justice or putting people to account. It doesn't mean forgetting. It certainly doesn't mean approval. What it means, if you forgive somebody, are two things. Firstly, it means you have to know more about what happened. So it's very truth compatible. Intolerance is not truth compatible. Intolerance favours emotive, simplistic, reductive tales about complex social and historical facts, and we've seen some examples tonight. So forgiveness, which also means you have to make a judgment, which means you have to know, is more truth compatible. Okay? It doesn't have to distort history, it doesn't have to cherry pick or select and present it in a certain very narrow restrictive framework in order to try and win consent. It tries and persuades using other means, namely evidence and logical reasoning. That evidence can be empirical, and there are all sorts of empirical forms of empirical evidence, and statistical disparities is only one single small part of it. The most important reason why I think we need to err on the side of forgiveness, sorry, I'm looking over this way, because of my hip, I've got a bit of a dodgy hip, I kind of look this way too, is that when we forgive, we are putting ourselves on a plane of equality. What we are doing is we are rejecting an insult, an offence, something somebody has said or done that has disgusted us, offended us, hurt us, made us angry on the basis of our ethnicity. But we are saying we're bigger than that. We are not letting that define us. And for me, that is the most powerful reason. Because forgiveness actually is not it's not a passive thing, it's not just having a little breath, as Yasmin put it. And it's not something that it's enforced. It's something we do when we are exerting our full agency in the light of our fullest reasoned judgment and imaginative capacity to the largest extent. That's why I think we need forgiveness.
Thank you. Before we take questions, we're actually going to go to our next speaker, who was meant to be the lead speaker, but unfortunately Yasmin had to nip in before. It's a bit of a change up in schedule, but we're going to have Professor Robert Beckford onto the stage. Professor, where are they? There you are. How modern. A Bible app on this phone? So you're praying all the time, are you, sir? Absolutely. So he's praying on a Bible app on his phone. Do you swear to tell nothing but the truth, the black truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. What does Rick Ross have in common with Steel Pulse? They both recognise that forgiveness is conditional. That's why Rick Ross says, God forgives, but I don't. That's why Steel Pulse say, I'll never forgive, I'll always remember. They recognise that forgiveness comes with such high conditions that we should rarely dispense it. Why do they say this? Because believe it or not, both Rick Ross and Steel Pulse understand how colonialism corrupted the notion of forgiveness for black people.
Thank you.
Read Frances Cress Welsing. She will tell you that in the context of African-American chattel slavery, in the case of slavery in the Caribbean, slave owners would beat, torture, brutalize, enslaved Africans, and then asked them to forgive them.
Thank you.
They did that in order to teach us that they could do anything to us and there would be no repercussions. A colonial understanding of forgiveness makes forgiveness cheap, easy, and throwaway. It's the kind of forgiveness that they've been talking about on the other side. But what Rick Ross and Steel Pulse do understand, and what they point us towards, is a decolonial understanding of forgiveness. So what do we mean by a decolonial understanding of forgiveness? It's an understanding of forgiveness that comes with three major conditions that people rarely meet, especially when it comes to dealing with issues that face black and brown people in this country. First condition is that you have to deal with the fact that you've done something wrong. Very few acts of very few people who have committed crimes or atrocities against black and brown people are willing to acknowledge that they've done wrong. We always get a half apology. What my dad used to call white people apology, where they say, we're sorry if it offended you.
Professor Beckford, could you look at the camera? You're
Sure. Sorry. Trying to be inclusive in space. The second thing is, very few people recognize that they've done wrong. The second condition that it comes with, you then have to deal with the repair. That's what we mean by repentance. In the Christian tradition, you have to turn away. Metanoia, it's turning away from what you've done. That's why we believe in reparations. You have to pay back what you owe, not a percentage. You can use the metrics. We developed it in the Brattle Report if you want to read it, or go back to my old film, 2005, Empire Pays Back. Pay the full amount. That's the second requirement. Third requirement, once you've recognized that you've done wrong, once you recognize that you've done the repair, then you can begin talking about reconciliation. And then if James Cone, the father of black liberation theology, is correct, he says, then oppressed people, the people who have been victimized, then they can determine whether or not they want to forgive. You see, the problem is this: we have been taught a corrupt, white nationalist, racist, violent, settler, colonialist view of forgiveness that means that most of us forgive too easy. Dylan Roof shoots up a church where people are having worship. The next day, the black people are out saying, we forgive you. Look at Anthony Walker, chopped down by Joey Barton's brother. You can see the family has a problem with black people, don't they? Joey Barton's brother racially kills a young black brother. 3-4 days later, the Walker family out saying, we forgive, we forgive, we forgive. You see, that colonial, corrupt notion of violent, settler, colonial forgiveness is still with us. Real forgiveness is possible, but in the Judeo-Christian tradition, it comes with those conditions. Realize that you've done wrong. He hasn't apologized properly to Diane Abbott yet. Show us the fruit of your repentance, not in liquids of money in the student fund. The black students said, no, come, wait for the check. And the third thing is then you can deal with the question of how the reconciliation takes place. When people do that, then we can begin to forgive. The reality is though, because we live in a white supremacist, capitalist, patriarchal society according to Bell Hooks, rarely do people feel they have the need to say sorry to us. Thank you.
What an interesting argument. So we'll take some points of blackness. Let's go with Femi. I'll give you let's have a microphone there.
I have to say...
Femi, keep it swift, under a minute.
Swift, don't worry, it's swift. I have to say, I don't forgive the speaker who came before Robert for accusing Diane Abbott of anti-Semitism. I don't forgive her. Because what did Diane Abbott say? She said there was a hierarchy of racism in this country. If at Jeremy Corbyn's height, he accepted £10 million from someone who said he wants to shoot Jewish women.
A dancing monkey on live television.
No, I didn't. I said that white people will always see her as a monkey, as they will see me as a monkey. Not white people, the GB News people. I didn't refer to her. I said
they will see you as they see me, as a dancing, talking monkey. No matter how much you dance for races, they will continue to see you as a dancing monkey, as they will see me, because they are racist. Not all white people, white racists. But anyway, I was going to keep it swift, so let me keep it swift. She said there was a hierarchy of racism. We saw someone on Good Morning Britain today saying that, imagine if black people went to a protest. Would the police treat them like they treated me? This guy on Good Morning Britain this morning, right? Imagine if Jeremy Corbyn accepted £10 million from someone who said he wanted to shoot all Jewish people, and that Margaret Hodge made him want to hate all Jewish women. Would he accept? Would the Labour Party be allowed to keep that money? So Diana has said the right thing.
So it's just one sentence.
Guys, let's hear you. I hear you.
It's something that I don't understand. The speaker there said when we want to sort of assert our full authority or something like that, we forgive. But when white supremacists want to assert theirs, they host, they kill. So why do they have to assert theirs in a very violent way, and we have to be so forgiving?
Any more points of that, please, before we move on?
But there's Albie as well over here.
Gentleman just over here. Oh, lady even, excuse me. Albie over here.
I think with forgiveness, the best apology is change behaviour. I don't think there's been change behaviour from Frank Hester. I think he just said sorry and someone brought up a point about it was said in private. Then things that I tweet, that's me talking in private. I can get charged for things like that, so he should be charged for saying something in public. He did say it wasn't in private because it was in public with other people, so it wasn't like he was saying it in his front room. He said it in an event. It was in the workplace, so it's a public.
Please say point of blackness if you have something to say. Sorry, carry on.
I got distracted. But yeah, so there's been no change behaviour. There's been no action to show that, oh yes, I'm actually sorry. I'm actually apologetic for inciting violence. You incited violence against black women. So if anyone else did that, I don't think, if it was me inciting violence in another group, I would have got arrested. So I don't understand why I should forgive him. There's been no change behaviour. Has he done it? Then he should donate money to some other causes. If he has so much money to donate to Tory party, he's donating it to other causes. If you're that sorry, he's not. So that's me.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that the question we're answering is whether or not forgiveness helps or hinders people from ethnic minority backgrounds, not whether or not we forgive Frank Hester. So, who is it that has another point of blackness? Do we have any other points of blackness? You just over here, sir.
Point of blackness. That's a magical, right? When we look at forgiveness, I think it comes. It's a balance between power. So we're talking power differentials here, and as I experience life differently, I see life differently from the eyes of the oppressed, and those who are oppressed will see that as the experience from that of the oppressor. So forgiveness is different for all of us. I don't do forgiveness at all. At all. And my children have taught them. We don't do forgiveness. It's an eye for an eye. Let's go with it. And I say to the oppressors, they're lucky that we're so docile that they taught us wrongly with their fake doctrines that we must forgive. They're so lucky we will run you out of town. Try that. If that guy that mentioned his name, the guy at the parliament, if he was a Nazi, the Jews are still hunting them down. As far as Bolivia and Argentina, if he was a Nazi who's made money from whatever atrocities they committed in Germany, I don't think he would be at the House of Commons. So I don't do forgiveness, and you're very lucky that we have been taught wrongly. That's all I wanted to say.
One other point, just over there.
Yeah, it's just to answer the question about whether forgiveness hinders or harms or helps black people. I think it doesn't help black people, especially in the world of work, because when a black person is oppressed at work, and again, we are taught to always forgive, isn't it? But when you forgive and no measures or safeguards are put in place to avoid or stop those kind of behaviors from happening, it doesn't help us. And that happens constantly. Companies are approached by black staff complaining about the bad treatment that they receive. Instead of being assisted or helped, or for companies to put safeguards in place, black staff are kind of punished for raising, for raising those issues. I mean, in addition, I would like to, I do admire the fact that two black people were brave enough to come here tonight and make an argument for forgiveness for the behavior of someone else. It shows how tolerant and welcoming we are as black people. But I humbly also expect the system to kind of show something back to us as black people and then protect us. That would be the best way to kind of encourage us to be forgiving.
We move on to our next argument of the evening, the final argument from those who argue that forgiveness helps. Who's convinced yet? I'm not sure. Still got a couple of arguments to go. So the final speaker arguing that forgiveness helps is Dele Ogun, who is a lawyer, author of Slave Ship Called Jesus, and founder of the Fatherland Group. Dele, what are you? And what book are you swearing on today?
My book, A Slave Ship Called Jesus.
Of course you are. I'll just get that right. It's a wonderful book, softback, so nice and cheap for everyone. I expect everyone buys one at the end. Dele, do you swear to tell nothing but the truth, nothing but the black truth?
I do.
Thank you, Dele. Take it away.
Well, I'm used to arguing very hard cases, but I haven't come across a case as hard as this one. I get the vibe in the room that we're in no mood for forgiveness. And I deal with Nell Sabi afterwards because those who know me know that my creed is an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So I start with that confession. But tonight, I'm going to persuade you that forgiveness is the way. Now, I criticize a lot of Nigerians whenever they deliver speeches because they always start with a definition. You know that thing? They get to the dictionary. According to the Oxford Dictionary, forgiveness means, but it is appropriate in this particular occasion because I did a quick search. What does forgiveness mean? Because you can't express a view and take a position on something that you do not understand. So let's get the terminology clear. What is forgiveness? This is the definition I came across. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. Now, I have to confess, from where I was starting from, that last bit stuck in my throat. Regardless of whether they actually deserve it. But I read on. You see, patience is a good thing. They went on and said, just as important as defining what forgiveness is, though, is understanding what forgiveness is not. Experts who study or teach forgiveness make clear that when you forgive, you do not gloss over or deny the seriousness of an offense against you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean condoning. or excusing offences. Though forgiveness can help repair a damaged relationship, it doesn't obligate you to reconcile with the person who harmed you or release them from legal accountability. Are you with me so far? Let's carry on. Instead, forgiveness brings the forgiver peace of mind and frees him or her from corrosive anger. Now that's not enough to tempt me. But it went on. Experts agree that it at least involves letting go of deeply held negative feelings. In that way, it empowers you to recognize the pain you suffered without letting that pain define you, enabling you to heal and move on with your life. So you see, the essence of forgiveness is about you and what it does to you, not to the person that you're forgiving. It is about you, how it releases you, gives you capacity to do things. And one of the most important things that forgiveness can give you capacity to do is to strategize. Now, let me give you context. Sometimes you need to partner up when you've got a bigger challenge to face. And it may be the person who you perceive to have wronged you that is the key to facing that bigger challenge. I come from Nigeria.
Woo!
And one of the other books that I've written is the history of Nigeria. And a key part of that history is the rivalry between my Yoruba people and my wife's Igbo people. And because we cannot get over what we perceive that they did to us and what they perceive that they did to, or we did to them, the oppressors at top get away with blue murder. All the stealing, all the killing, all the robbery is because those two cannot bring themselves to forgive. Let me give you another instance. The Caribbean community, in the context of the slave trade. The attitude that you Africans sold us. And the reverse attitude, born of ignorance, that you were sold because you were this, that, and the other. Neither of which is true. But because of that war, that perception, that version and narrative that they're running with, we can't take the handshake in order to face the biggest challenge. And what about the big divide? The black and white one. The race base. Is there a possibility? Are there circumstances in which our helper will be the person of the other color? And if we go around saying we can't forgive because of all that stuff that was done to us, then you'll never meet that bigger challenge. Now, Yasmin earlier in a very persuasive speech referenced Mandela. Yes, in the middle of that horrible apartheid oppression of our people in South Africa. But how many here know the name of the lawyer who saved Mandela from the gallows? His name was Sir Sidney Kentridge. He's a white man.
Racist, I'm telling you.
Peter, you know you're notorious. But hold your peace. Hold your peace. Sir Sidney Kentridge was the one who defended Mandela in the treason trials. He was the one also who represented the Steve Biko family in that police inquiry. Now, we all have our viewpoints. Peter has his. But
I'll tell you a story though.
hold your story. You're not the judge now. And the judge should also listen to the arguments before they pronounce their verdicts. Not so. So, I make the point again. There cannot be a hard rule that you will never forgive. You'll forgive when it's strategically to your advantage to forgive. And there will be occasions when that one who you say, I can never forgive, might just be the one that you need that will get you further forward. So this debate is not about Frank Hester. This is not a trial of Frank Hester. This is a trial of the principle of forgiveness. And I encourage you, members of the jury, to recognize that forgiveness can be good for you. I hand you back.
We'll now move on to our final argument of the evening, the one you've all been waiting for. I think she might be in pink. Am I right? I was right. We have Chibuzo Tina Amadi, who is a writer, theologian, commentator, and PhD researcher on the relationship between Christianity and British politics.
I'm swearing on my Bible app.
Your Bible app? These Bible apps are everywhere, aren't they? Do you pay for them or are they free?
They are free.
Good. What is it called, this one?
It's just a YouVersion Bible app.
Albie, can we just get...
All right.
Albie, can we just get you got both on the camera, please? Yeah, thank you.
Yep. Got to get swearing on the phone. Nice and modern. Right. Chibuzo, do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole black truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you
it away.
very much. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I trust you are well. I'm going to stick to script tonight because I have a tendency to get a little bit excited and I have a tendency to preach a little bit as well. So if I stick to script, please bear with me. I will move around and ensure that you can all see and hear me. As a minister of the gospel and someone who walks the corridors of Parliament, what I'm preparing to say may shock some, but to the real ones, you know what time it is. Okay? It will be biblical, but it will not be typical. The inaccurate understanding of forgiveness within the confines of Christianity has indeed hindered the progression of black people who ascribe to said religion. Black people do not only use religion as a vehicle for a relationship with God and eternity with Him, we also use religion as our coping strategy and mechanism against oppression and the hardships of life. As a result of the principle of forgiveness, forgiveness has become for us a political, social, and economic response for the mandate that is the ills we face. Consequently, we deal with the oppression that we experience, the racism that we experience, the degradation that we experience, and instead of tackling it as a social and political issue, we use religion and our religious communities as a soothing, safe space to hide and recover. We deem the oppression as religious affliction, and we use the principle of forgiveness to comfort ourselves against the injustice that we face, and we pray it away. We therefore become a race of people that uses religion and our relationship with God, or indeed Christianity, as a pillow and a bandage for our wounds. And we will forgive our oppressors because that is what is required of us to do. We will forgive those who are racist. We will forgive those who have systematically and structurally ensured that global economics and society do not benefit us at all. We will forgive. We will pray for them because our faith predicates that we are to pray for our enemies and those who despise us. The latter is entirely correct. Forgiveness is a key foundational principle of the kingdom of God, one of the 7 pillars of our faith. Forgive because your Father in heaven constantly forgives you. Forgive and you shall be forgiven. We are sinful, fallen people, so the same forgiveness we require is the same forgiveness we offer. The issue many people have with black Christians and their interpretation and adoption of forgiveness is almost that it seems as if a pacifist interpretation of forgiveness has been adopted to us. And that specific interpretation of forgiveness is an impediment to black progression. That is not the Christ-centered biblical forgiveness that was intended for us to use. The inaccurate interpretation of forgiveness has hindered black people. It has hindered the church. So what is the truth? God calls us to speak and to seek justice. He calls us to forgive man and to challenge evil. Yes. Jesus doesn't teach passivity, rather righteous judgment. Yes. So forgiveness in its accurate understanding is not a concept that is supposed to perpetuate oppression. It is not supposed to perpetuate injustice, and it's not supposed to perpetuate an unlivable, untenable society. That is not the forgiveness that we are supposed to have been adopting ourselves. What we have done is we've misinterpreted the biblical definition of forgiveness. Please don't ascribe that to my God. God actually calls us and gives us the power and the dominion to challenge, refute, and re-stabilize and rebalance society. I speak to those who are Pan-African but wrestle with Christianity. I think what has happened is that we have misunderstood our place as black Christians. We have become docile instead of dominant. We have somehow believed that a black Christian is at the bottom of the pecking order in society. Conversely, when you read the text, and many people who are trying to quote forgiveness today haven't read the text. When you actually read the text and you read the Bible, we are actually called to be the head and not the tail, to rule and to reign, to handle earth the way that God handles heaven. So I speak to people of faith. There is no point having faith without power. There is no point having or possessing power and not speaking truth to power. Power to liberate, power to conquer, power to advance. I forgive the oppressor, but I challenge the principalities and the powers, the rulers of darkness in heavenly high places, and the ones who are behind the oppressor and the oppression. That is forgiveness. Black Christians, don't get it twisted. Forgiveness was and never was an intervention to shall be the race that is hard pressed on every side, but yet also have the largest congregations and churches on the planet. Speak truth to power. Give justice to the weak and to the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. That's Psalms 82 verse 3. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. That's Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17. It's time to wake up. Being a black Christian isn't what you think it is. You have misinterpreted it. So let me set the record straight. If I were a Hebrew Israelite, I will tell you that being that black people we are God's chosen creation. We are God's chosen people. Then it would make sense to you why the oppression of black people is so systematic and constant. And you would believe me if I was a Hebrew Israelite. But my Bible tells me that when the enemy makes war with you, you make war with him. You don't hide, you don't run scared, you take up arms. Yes. Which Bible are you reading? And why have you misinterpreted forgiveness? The Jesus that stood before you, the Jesus that stood before Pilate, wasn't a pacifist. Jesus rejected oppressive power structures. He refused to conform to societal norms. He refused to conform to the agenda. He shifted the power paradigm. He advocated for a kingdom where the first shall be last and the last shall be first. He was a threat to public order, which is why they tried to control him and suppress him and then later kill him. So the Jesus that stood before Pilate spoke truth to power and was not silent in the face of oppression. He spoke to let the oppressed actually go free. This was the building block of the kingdom he came to enforce. For the disenfranchised, the disinherited, the marginalized, those whose back was against the wall. And you read that and still think that oppression is the order of the day? You are heavily mistaken. You have misinterpreted and misunderstood forgiveness. If they told you that you have to forgive your oppressors and not challenge evil, it's misinformation. And I'm going to need us as black people to come a little bit higher and be critical thinkers. They lied to you. It's rooted in falsehood and manipulation and forming of narratives, political and otherwise. It is a bias and it's a nature to keep us all conforming. It's a normative acceptance of our life. And you need to come a little bit higher and be a critical thinker and reject this concept that you have been told and perpetuated that forgiveness means you are to just be silent in the face of oppression because you are a black Christian.
Who said that? Straw man.
When I finish, I will address you. Okay. We have misunderstood forgiveness. When you are a true disciple of Christ, you have to think politically in order for society to change. This is not radical thinking. The black Christian we have now is not right. He's too forgiving, he's too non-confrontational, too placid, too safe, and too confined. You have misinterpreted forgiveness. So yes, the inaccurate understanding of forgiveness has hindered black people. But the correct understanding of forgiveness and the ability to seek justice and free people from oppression is what we as black people are supposed to be and supposed to do.
Last statement was in favour of forgiving or against forgiving? I wasn't quite clear, just want to make that distinction to everyone. So we will take some points of blackness. I did hear Alvin and Aya say something. Do you want to say it louder?
It's what I said in my speech is that you need some clarity and some logic when thinking, right? We're just shouting out assertions. I mean, whether it's biblical or political, what we've just heard, I don't know. It's very confusing. It's a straw man argument. No one ever said.
It's not a straw man argument.
Neither myself, nor Inaya, nor Dele has said that forgiveness means being meek, submissive,
Did I say you said
the
that?
other cheek.
She said staying silent in the face of oppression.
Absolutely it doesn't. And if you're going to fight oppression, you are, especially if you're living in a country that happens to be majority white, going to need people other than those who agree with you here. You are going to need to make strategic allies to fight for the bigger things that Derek talked about. You are not going to win or persuade people by telling them that they're to the core racist just because you have that's your particular interpretation.
I never said that. I think what you did was you heard what you wanted to hear as opposed to what I said. What I said was that the inaccurate understanding of forgiveness is actually hindering black people from progressing. I said that the Pan-African movement and us being able to move forward actually needs to come to a place whereby we are not thinking. What?
I just want to make a person, yeah.
Go on. Yes, what I was saying was that in order for black people to progress, in order for us to advance, the inaccurate understanding of forgiveness that you're perpetuating is actually what's going to hold us back. What we actually need to do is we can still forgive the man, but we can challenge the evil. We can challenge oppression, we can challenge oppressors, and we can actually advocate for advancement. That's what I was saying. I was saying that the inaccurate understanding of forgiveness is the problem. I didn't say as a Christian, forgiveness is a principle that I stand by. But inaccurate understanding, inaccurate application, especially when you're not challenging the evil behind it, is the problem. So what I'm saying is forgive, but challenge the evil. You forgive the man, but you challenge the systems that are behind the oppression. And that's what I said.
Elijah, you have something to rebut very quickly.
There's obviously a lot there. And I think all of us, myself, Alka and Dele, will all say that we oppose racism, we're disgusted by it, and as and when we see it, we would call it out. And I think that none of those things, calling out, being disgusted, and making a moral judgment about the evil of racism necessarily means, I think you can also believe that actually people can be forgiven for even doing things like that. So I think that there is a lot of conflation going on, as Alka said, that in her speech, that it doesn't mean overlooking, it doesn't necessarily mean forgetting, it doesn't even mean that you cannot enact justice. But I think forgiveness is, say, reaffirming your humanity and the humanity of that other person. I think that's the only way that we can transcend. And one other point quickly, just one other point quickly. I think one of the difficulties in this discussion is that, the hook was obviously Frank Hester, and I recognise we're not necessarily talking about that, but a lot has been brought into it. So obviously slavery, colonialism, some of the most horrific things that happened in history. I think that we need to, I don't think every single issue needs to be seen through that lens. Sometimes actually we're in 2024. We don't live in the same society that Frederick Douglass and other people lived in. And I think it's really difficult to have a nuanced conversation when everything is brought in this really emotive way.
Thank you very much. And I will just go to this gentleman at the back over here. Sir, what is it that you have to say?
Just point of Africanness, and apologies for interrupting. 2 points. Sidney Kentridge was paid by the Swedish government for both cases huge sums of money. I went to see Sidney Kentridge in 1984 when the Afrikaans regime was hanging black people and throwing them out of windows like it was confetti. Sidney Kentridge would not take a Nigerian as a pupil who had double first from Oxford because he said her face would not fit and her accent would not be accepted by members of chambers. That was direct. And secondly, when the Bar Council, we were campaigning against removing the Bar Council support for the South African government, as we did with the Law Society, the Bar Council put up Sir Sidney Kentridge to oppose our motions before the Bar Council. The reality is, his selection was to where it paid defend Mandela, where it was acceptable to oppose the way in which he and his comrades, fellow judges, sat in judgment on black people, and we're saying essentially, well, this is not Nuremberg, this is not Nazi Germany 1936. We can do this and still come to London and have our nice chambers. He wanted his cake and eat it. So I really have a major problem with people such as that, being put as icons of our liberations, because they never were and never will be.
I'm not going to lie, I'm going to need Uncle Dave to reply to that, because my friend is also in South Africa as well.
As I say, people have their opinions. We all have our opinions. Peter has his opinion. The reality is this. Sidney Kentridge is a white man with a heart of gold. Jesus! You haven't met him? I have. The fellow is just turning 100 now. Now, take it away from South Africa as a mark of a man. How many of you have heard of the Chagos Islands? Yeah? You remember when the British government displaced those people from the island? Who was the fellow? He's a corporate lawyer. I met him in the context of corporate law. I don't do criminal law. It's in the context of advanced corporate law that I met this guy. But he still has time for the humane side of law that other corporate lawyers will never touch. He was the one who represented those Chagos Islands. There's a scene that runs through the gentleman. Don't rely on Peter's opinion. That's his opinion, and he's entitled to it.
Knowledge.
Find out.
Point of Africanness. Point of Africanness. Point of blackness. Point of Africanness. With a cane.
Now, I think we have to really talk about that. What is the purpose of redemption? And I think it's really important that we talk about this period of truth and security, reconciliation during the ending of apartheid South Africa. Because the reality is, if you talk to South African, black South Africans, not coloured South Africans, not white South Africans, you talk to black South Africans about what is the result of the period of truth and reconciliation, is that they will tell you that it was not a strategic move that has benefited Africans today. And I think when we're talking about redemption, we have to really ask ourselves, like, if we're going to forgive the perpetrators of oppression, of racism, are they going to now take active steps in reversing the harm, of ending the harm and reversing the harm, taking active actions towards ending that system? And if we're talking about South Africa, we're seeing that 10% of the population owning 70% of the wealth, and Africans in South Africa will tell you that this is not beneficial to us. And like, if we look at Frank Hester, the donor to the Conservative Party, the truth is that Frank Hester is the biggest influence on the Conservative Party, more so than any of the voters for the Conservative Party. And the truth is that the feelings and views of Frank Hester are not that alien and not that radical and not that alt-right or far-right for the average Tory voter. We have not challenged the problem of white supremacy and the ideas of white supremacy amongst Conservative voters. All we have done is have a conversation about Frank Hester. Should we forgive Frank Hester? Should we forgive the perpetrators of apartheid? What we haven't talked about is how we reversed and how we ended the harm of white supremacy and apartheid. So yeah, thank you very much.
Always like, yes, it is right. I can hear my own voice now. That's better. So we're going to go straight to the vote. I think we're going to do it via a show of hands. And
No, we actually have the technology.
Do we have time?
We do. We got this faster.
We do.
Yeah.
Right, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll do something much more technologically advanced now. So will you tell me what we're doing?
Right behind you.
Ah.
We just time. We couldn't make it because of time. Okay, hold on one second, guys. 1 second. You want to make it for this? Okay, just 1 second. We're going to have 1 minute closing statements from either side. You're both represented. 1 minute, literally 1 minute.
Let us remind ourselves, members of the jury, what is on trial. It is not Frank Hester. It is not Sidney Kentridge. It is not South Africa. It is not racism. It is the concept and the principle of forgiveness. Whether forgiveness is guilty, not Frank Hester. Whether forgiveness can be an asset or a hindrance. And our case was that it can be an asset. It needs to be conscious, considered, rather than casual. It does not mean forgetfulness. It does not mean whitewashing. Keep that in your mind as you vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think with that being said, if forgiveness is...
The code is #1901842. #1901842.
Have we all voted? Does everybody have the code?
Does anyone need the code or the website?
All right. Whilst we're just, Albie, 1 second. Can I just have a mic?
With the Biggie duets, and guys, you can chip in if you want to. The Biggie duets. What do you think? Sorry, can we have a microphone for our...
I'll go, John.
Jane, would you agree? John, okay. Let's go with the Biggie duets, guys. What do we think? Mace Harlem World, which is top right.
Okay, it's quite easy for me.
That's the first album, right?
One record on it?
Yeah, there's some bangers on that one. I'm going prime. In between time, it's about basic.
What's he saying? No, that's black.
No, bass. I go John.
Jay, you agree? What do you think, Jay? John, okay. Let's go with... okay, fine. Mace Harlem. Let's go with top right. Black Rock.
That's the
Black
first
Rock,
album, right?
Life Story.
Yeah, there's some bangers on that one. I'm going prime.
Right.
In between be prime. That's for me. It's their prime. Listen, when I heard whoa,
no, that's black.
No, base. Middle, 24 hours to live.
Yeah. What do you think, Jay? Remember, what do you think? 24 hours was an honour.
Who said I did? Well,
let's go with
congratulations. That was the first song I ever heard.
Black Rob, I think, on Life Story. Let's go to come on. Let's go to Shine Shine.
That's for me. Basic. I'm going prime. Listen, when I heard whoa, there's only like 2 or 3 records on that, and they 24 hours. Whenever I listen to him, I was like,
no, 24 hours wasn't on there. 24 hours wasn't on there.
Who said I did?
Some prime for That was the first song Prime Minister of
It's a good luck to me.
Let's go to let's go to Shine Shine. Okay, so we're hovering between.
Sorry, there's only like 2 or 3 records on that.
So let's go to now.
I was
No Way Out. That's on the bottom. It's the brownish leaf. Some pride for that. Come down, guys. You must become No Way Out.
It's a good luck to me. Yeah, that's prime.
Okay, so we're hovering between. But it's prime. It is prime. So let's go to now. No Way Out by the man himself. Well, that's on the bottom. Let's now go to brown prime. And then let's go to Puff Daddy Forever. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Yeah, No Way Out.
Sorry.
John.
Yeah, that's
all right. We're going to do this really quick because we're going to wrap up right now. And then let's go to Craig Max Funk the World.
Just put it straight to prime. But it's prime. It is prime. Come on, man. Get down. It's just on that. Flavour in your ear.
Let's now go to
Prime. Unfortunately, he came out.
Let's go to Puff Daddy Forever.
And Biggie just took the shine. But Craig was sorry.
John. All right. We're going to do this really quick because we're going to wrap up right now. And then let's go to Craig Max Funk the World.
Just put it straight to prime, don't piss about.
Funk the World?
Come on, man. Get down, come on, flavour in your ear.
Fair enough.
You know what it was? Unfortunately, he came out literally on the back of Biggie, and Biggie just took the shine. But Craig was banging.
Yeah, so you could say that. Snoop Dogg came out on the back of Dr. Dre and Dr. Payton. Anyway, let's see.
When you've got a company focusing on one artist, when you've got 2, trust me, one artist is winning.
Fair enough.
And if Dre had Eminem and Snoop at the time, one of them was going to suffer.
Fair enough. Let's go to Ready to Die.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no.
He didn't ask me. Go by prime.
Right.
By prime.
Now let's go to
upper prime.
Let's go to Life After Death.
Let's put it straight in a rapper meter.
Life After Death. Okay, fair enough. Do we see the same guys?
You know what?
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Bum, 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 bum. You know exactly what I'm going to say. Kick in the door.
Let's go. And what's this in the bottom right here also? I can't even read that. What is that? French Montana. Oh, French Montana. Sorry, that's the job.
Yeah, he released one album on Bad Boy.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say it was John. Okay, we'll go with John. And then we've got 2 more at the top there, The Locks and Born Again by Biggie.
Okay, I'm actually a Locks fan. So I would put Locks in prime, but I know a lot of people might not like that particular album, so they might call it basic. Born Again, I'm putting that into basic and prime. Because without Biggie's involvement, the albums just don't stack up.
Fair enough. Do we all agree with this, guys? This is a reflection?
No, the Born Again come lower down, basic and prime. Basic and sub-prime. In between the 2, there you go.
There you go. There's someone to push Life After Death. Life After Death was a popper. And it's anyway, just my fault. Mervyn, Matt, Jay, thank you very, very much. Do we have our votes in? George, do you want to come and announce the votes? Or do you want to, sorry, Albie come, Georgia and Albie, do you want to come along and announce the votes between 2 of you?
Just getting my popcorn ready.
So, on the question of does forgiving racists help or hinder people of colour, 88% of the jury think hinder, and 12% think help. And thank you all so much for coming, and congratulations to the team that won.
Thank you. Guys, one final thing. I have a new book out and it's for sale at the back over there. The Dele Ogun, A Slave Ship for Jesus at the back. Buy the books. Buy books, guys. Keep them alive. Thank you.